Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we crack open the source material to find the most surprising and, well, actionable knowledge.
And today we are really getting our hands dirty.
We're opening up the ultimate culinary playbook, Mark Bittman's revolutionary guide, How to Cook Everything, which first came out, back in 1998?
Yeah, and it's so much more than just a cookbook. It's really a cultural document. You have to remember what 1998 was like.
Right.
You had the Food Network exploding, making chefs into these huge celebrities. But at the same time, most people were relying so heavily on convenience food, on fast food.
And Bittman just walks right into that tension.
He really does.
And what made him, I think, the perfect person to write this is that he was a highly respected food journalist, a columnist for the New York Times for years.
But, and this is the key, he openly admitted he had zero formal culinary school training. He's kind of the anti-chef writing for the anti-cook.
Yes, that lack of institutional rigor is his superpower.
It is. He just strips away all the pretension, the complex French jargon, the million different gadgets you supposedly need.
Right.
He's writing directly for you, the person at home who feels overwhelmed and just needs to get a good, healthy dinner on the table tonight.
So the core mission of this deep dive, then, is to really extract Bittman's framework. How do you get that real confidence, that creativity in the kitchen without falling into the panic that a complicated recipe can cause?
What are the shortcuts?
Exactly. What are the philosophical shortcuts to being self-sufficient in your kitchen? Okay, let's unpack this and find that path.
Well, the central argument that defines his whole approach is it's beautifully simple.
Okay.
Cooking is not some elitist hobby that's just reserved for gourmands. It is an essential, accessible life skill.
And just by framing it that way, he immediately challenges the idea that cooking is a chore.
Exactly. He transforms it into this fundamental act of independence.
So the first principle he lays out is all about getting the right mindset. He calls it the joy of experimentation.
Which is so important because the most intimidating part of cooking for so many people is feeling like you have to follow the recipe perfectly.
Like it's a chemistry experiment.
Right. And Bittman just throws that out the window. He emphasizes simple ingredients and, this is the key, the flexibility to adapt based on what you actually have.
This is so critical for what I've heard called recipe paralysis.
That's a great term for it, yeah. If a recipe calls for fresh thyme, but you only have dried oregano, a traditional cookbook might make you feel like, well, stop, go to the store. Bittman says, swap it out. Just try it. By encouraging those substitutions, he's teaching you the relationship between ingredients. And that's so much more valuable than memorizing a ratio.
It's about building a kind of culinary literacy. And, within that mindset, there's one tip that every professional chef lives by, but that novices, well, we almost always skip it.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Tasting as you go.
Yes. It seems so obvious.
It does. But it's a deliberate shift in who's responsible for the dish.
It really is, because tasting as you go isn't just about, does this need more salt? It's about asking deeper questions, right?
Like what?
Like, does this need some acid, a squeeze of lemon, maybe some vinegar? Does it need something fatty to carry the flavor? Does it need more heat to open up the aroma?
So you're moving from being a robot following instructions
to becoming the editor of the dish, an intuitive editor. That active sensory feedback loop is how your palate develops from just, a taster into a reliable tool.
Okay, so if the first cluster is about trusting your gut and finding that flavor confidence, the second cluster has to be about building the muscle memory to have a gut to trust in the first place.
Right, and that's where we get into the essential skills and knowledge.
This is the practical stuff.
Exactly. Bittman is so rigorous about mastering a very small number of foundational techniques. He basically boils down the entire kitchen repertoire to just a few building blocks: roasting, sautéing, and boiling.
And these aren't just one-off skills.
No, not at all. They are the architectural structure for thousands of dishes.
Let's pick one of those, like sautéing. Why is mastering something that sounds so simple, why is that so foundational?
That's a great question, because if you can truly master sautéing, which really just means mastering heat and fat control, you can suddenly make everything from a quick stir fry to a perfect pan-seared chicken.
Right.
And critically, you can then deglaze that pan to create a simple, elegant sauce. Sautéing is the gateway. It helps you understand how heat transforms texture and concentrates flavor.
So once you get that, you don't need a specific recipe for a pan sauce.
You just need the principle.
And he couples that with detailed guidance on the ingredients themselves, how to pick the best produce or how to, handle a piece of meat or cook grains properly.
Yes, because knowing how an ingredient behaves when you apply heat is half the battle. If you know that roasting root vegetables makes their sugars caramelize and get more intense, you can apply that same principle to carrots, parsnips, sweet potatoes. You don't need 3 different recipes.
And here's where it gets really interesting because he structured this like a curriculum. The organization of the book is so smart.
It's encyclopedic, really.
Right. It starts with getting started, your essential tools, your pantry staples, and then it just moves through categories: vegetables, meats, grains.
And that structure is highly deliberate. It minimizes that initial panic.
How so?
Well, most cookbooks are organized by, meal type or cuisine. Bittman organizes by component. So if you buy some weird vegetable at the farmer's market, you don't look for a recipe. You go to the vegetable section, you find that ingredient, and boom, you instantly have 5 basic ways to prepare it. Roast it, saute it, steam it. That's empowering.
Which brings us to the third core cluster he builds: cooking as a life skill that extends way beyond the plate.
For him, it fosters self-sufficiency, well-being. It's a genuine act of creativity and independence.
And this ties so directly into, our modern consciousness around resourcefulness and sustainability.
Oh, absolutely. He embeds advice on using leftovers, repurposing ingredients. He teaches you how to look at yesterday's roasted chicken and see tomorrow's soup or salad.
Which saves you from that emergency, budget-busting call to the pizza place when the fridge looks empty.
Exactly. And it promotes healthier habits, too. By focusing on fresh, whole ingredients and just demystifying how to prepare them, the book makes choosing nutritious meals feel easy, routine.
It really aligns with, broader wellness goals.
Precisely. The shift he's trying to inspire isn't just in what you cook, but in your control over the whole food supply chain in your own house.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little to the deeper themes. The central takeaway here feels like the democratization of cooking.
Yes. Bittman's core message is that professional skills should be accessible to everyone who has a home kitchen, period.
And you can actually see that mirrored in how the book progresses. It systematically moves you, the reader, from the most basic one-ingredient recipes to really complex multi-part dishes.
That structure itself illustrates that culinary competence isn't some gift you're born with. It's a gradual, lifelong learning process that's available to anyone.
What's fascinating here is how Bittman connects this to the bigger picture.
He does. He elevates the conversation beyond just technical skill. Cooking connects you to your heritage, to your family, your community.
Right.
The universal messages are about that primal need to, nurture relationships through shared meals, celebrating cultural diversity through food. The simple act of breaking bread becomes a way to explore the world.
And it really stands in stark contrast to other big culinary milestones, doesn't it? I mean, you compare Bittman's broad, adaptable encyclopedia to, say, Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking.
You see 2 fundamentally different philosophies.
Way different.
Absolutely. Child's mission was to transport a very deep, sophisticated, often complex French tradition and plant it intact into the American kitchen.
Her focus was on technical mastery within a very specific framework.
Right. Bittman, though, is all about American pragmatism. His goal is instant usability and adaptability. They both want you to achieve mastery, but Bittman defines mastery not as replicating a specific dish, but as achieving self-reliance.
So if we accept that philosophy, how do we translate it into real-world strategies for you, the person listening?
Well, it starts with establishing a practice framework using those foundational techniques we talked about: sautéing, roasting, grilling.
And recognizing their versatility. That feels like the ultimate shortcut.
It is. If you know how to roast a chicken perfectly, you have essentially mastered the core technique for roasting beef, pork, and most big vegetables. You don't need 50 different roasting recipes. You need one set of principles.
So for daily application, consistency is everything. Bittman encourages 2 things: just simple meal planning, even just deciding what's for dinner before 5 p.m.
Which is a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
It is. And committing to exploring one new recipe a week. That routine helps build proficiency really fast.
Yeah.
Cooking stops being this occasional scramble and starts becoming a sustainable habit.
And for that long-term personalized growth, he really advises self-assessment and reflection.
This is where keeping a cooking journal comes in.
Exactly. And it's not just a record of ingredients, it's a record of results. You document what worked, what didn't, why, and most importantly, you track your personal preferences.
But how does a journal help me when I'm standing in front of the fridge at 6 p.m. feeling totally overwhelmed?
It creates your own personal database. So a recipe might say cook at 350 for 45 minutes, but your oven runs hot. Your journal says your perfect roast chicken actually takes 40 minutes at 340.
I see. It moves general advice into personalized wisdom.
Precisely. And it lets you set achievable goals like, I'm going to master braising this month, or try a new regional cuisine next month. You expand your repertoire steadily without the overwhelm.
And Bittman helps motivate all this by peppering the book with these great real-world examples and case studies. He'll break down a classic recipe and show how a simple technique, or a creative substitution, led to an incredible result.
He makes it feel immediate and achievable. He's basically giving you permission and the knowledge to stop being scared and just try it.
So if we boil it all down, the major insight is this. Cooking is fundamentally simple, accessible, and enjoyable for anyone willing to master the basics.
And the big shift is from that strict adherence to the printed script to prioritizing your own intuition.
Right. And that intuition fosters a huge cultural impact. By lowering the barrier to entry, the book really did inspire a massive cultural shift toward valuing homemade meals, promoting healthier habits.
And just reducing our reliance on processed foods. It's about taking back control intellectually and physically over what you put in your body.
But this raises an important question for you, the learner. It's a question that lives right in the heart of Bittman's philosophy.
The central ambiguity.
Yes. The tension between following recipes precisely and his constant enthusiastic encouragement to just improvise.
For a true novice, that can be paralyzing. When do you trust the measurement and when do you just wing it?
Exactly.
And that ambiguity, I think, is the final lesson. It's where true culinary freedom is found. The ultimate goal of this book isn't just to make you a competent cook, but to make you an intuitive creator, to move you beyond the printed page.
So the final challenge he leaves you with is figuring out when you've mastered a basic technique well enough, when you can safely substitute ingredients and rely purely on your own developed palate rather than the recipe to create something delicious.
That's the moment. That is the moment that technical skill finally transforms into personal creative art.